everybody. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you a gingerbread house that is made entirely out of nail products, and it's got the most beautiful floor or background color that is from the Madam Glam Advent Calendar. It is absolutely stunning. It is a rainbow mix of glitter, and it just looks like, it reminds me of like the iconic sequins party dress, like New Year's dress, but it's so pretty, and it is so perfect for the background of this gingerbread house because I have all sorts of colors in there. I hope you guys like this one as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well.
We are going to begin with that gorgeous color. It's called Best Year Ever, and I used it a few days ago in a different video, and I said I would use it again, and I showed you guys, so here we go. Look at that first coat. It covers beautifully in 2 coats. Here's the second coat. It is just, it's a stunner. It really is. After there's 2 coats, I'm going to use Madam Glam's No Wipe top coat and just finish that off with a layer top coat. And now on a piece of scratch paper, I'm going to be drawing my template for my gingerbread house. If you want, you could actually Google some templates for gingerbread houses online and find some ideas for different ones that are out there. I'm going to use a pentagram for the front, which is a pretty standard thing, and then 2 squares for the sides, and then 2 squares for the roof. The roof is slightly larger. Lay a nail form backing over the top of your template, and then with a gingerbread housey color, I'm going to be sculpting 2 of each of those pieces. For the color, mine does have a little bit of glitter in it, which I do really like for this. I don't think I would recommend you go like full on brown gingerbread house color glitter. I feel like if it was too glittery and with the glittery background and I plan to add some rhinestones to this, it would just get to be too much. But that very subtle little bit of shimmery glitter flake in there I think is really pretty and just embodies like the festivity feeling of this design. So we've got the 2 fronts, the 2 sides, and then you have to just sculpt the 2 roof pieces. After you do have all of your pieces sculpted, make sure that you leave them on your nail form backing to fully cure so that when you pick them up, they aren't bendy at all. They are really nice and firm and stiff. After you have it to that point and you can peel them all off your nail form backing, you can begin gluing them together. Hold on to one of the front pieces, so either the front or the back. Grab one of the side squares and glue it on. Just hold it until it seems like it's going to stay there when you let go. After you let go, repeat on the other side. Same thing. Don't let go until it seems like it's going to stay where you put it. Sometimes they take a little longer than other times for the glue to really act like it's dry. Sometimes you set it down and it's good almost instantly, and sometimes it feels like it takes half an eternity. But once both sides are pretty good, then grab your other side, your other front or back piece, and then set it on top of the sides. Make sure that you do dip the edges in glue so that there's something to hold it together. After you have it where you've got the whole thing started, you're going to take clear acrylic, and on the interior of the house, you're going to add some reinforcements to all of those sides that you've done, that you've glued together. So any place where you use nail glue to get something to stick, you want to add some clear acrylic on the inside of the house. No one's going to see the inside of the house, so it doesn't have to look beautiful. You just have to get something to make it stick. Then you're going to grab a roof piece and you're going to glue it from the peak of the house down. There should be some overhang over the edge of the house. You want it to align with the peak, but it can slide down the front. After you have the first side done, try to make sure it's even where it's from the front to the back. The overhang is about the same. Grab your second roof piece and you're going to glue that one on. And then using more of your gingerbread house color, that brown color, you're going to add a little bit more security to all of the seams that are on the exterior now. So on the undersides of the roof pieces, on the sides, the front, the back, if any of your seams on the front just look like they're a little bit loose, like there's a little bit of a hole going on here and there, they just don't look finished, add some more clear acrylic to fill in all of those gaps, or not clear acrylic, some more of the brown acrylic to fill in all of the gaps. The more you add in this moment, the stronger your little house is going to be, the longer it's going to last, the better luck you're going to have just in general getting this to stick together and to stay. If you add plenty of acrylic, it's super durable and you don't have to worry about it in the slightest. If you do not and you skip out on any of these little edges, you run the risk of things falling apart. Now going back to the nail form backing, you can start sculpting some of the little extra pieces to this. You can sculpt various types of candy. I'm going to sculpt a couple different lollipops first by just sculpting a white circle, and then I'm going to be pressing a piece of wire into my white circle for the stick of the lollipop, and then I'm going to repeat for a second one. I want one lollipop on either side of the front of the house. I'm going to add a little cap over the top of the wire so that it is not visible. After I have the first one done, I'm going to finish up the second one. And then while those lollipops are curing, next to them, you can make some bows for the front of them. I usually like to make my bows in 2 separate pieces where I attach them together later. Because these are going to be so tiny and they're going to be attached to the metal, I wanted them to have a little bit more strength, so I'm going to keep them one piece. So it's one piece that's all together. So after you sculpt it, it looks almost like a number 8, but without the hole in the middle. Then you're going to fold the ends of it in towards the center and repeat to make a second bow so that there's one for each of your lollipops, and add a little bit of center acrylic across the middle to finish that off. And then you can leave all of that to cure. Once it's done, peel the lollipops off, and you're going to add some roundness to the back of them. The side that was touching the nail form backing is going to be totally flat when you first remove it and very, very shiny and just won't look the same. Once that's done, I'm going to start assembling some of these pieces. I'm going to round off the front and the back of my gingerbread house so it's about the same curvature of the nail. I'm going to hold it on, see if it fits. As long as it fits, you are free to glue it on. If it seems like it just doesn't quite fit yet, you may need to e-file off just a little bit more space here and there to make sure that the fit is nice and snug to the nail. Use some clear acrylic to attach the gingerbread house to the nail. It may help you, it may speed up the process if you scuff the nail right where you know that piece is going to be attached down. So you just kind of rough it up with a nail file or a buffer block so that there's a little bit more for that acrylic to grab onto. If you don't do that, it does work. Obviously, it does work just fine. It's just one of those, if you want to take that extra step and do that, that is an option. And then with clear acrylic, secure this house all the way around its perimeter. And then switching over to white acrylic, we're going to take and add a little snowy border around the house. Use this color to create that nice flawless transition from house to nail. The other great thing about using white acrylic between these two is that we have 2 colors of glitter happening. We have the glittery house, we have the glittery background, and the white is going to give us a break from the glitter, which usually isn't what I'd say. I'm usually like, yes, all glitter all the time. But in this circumstance, to have it be easily visually distinguished between the 2 things, even though the colors are nowhere near the same, they're both just such vivid colors that together, without that nice border between them, they get a little bit muddy. So make sure you have that nice white border just to make everything easy to see. I'm going to continue that white in 2 little strips down the very tip of the nail, like a little pathway towards the front of the house. Do the same for a second one of those against the gel top coat that is on the nail. It is so easy to sculpt these little strips because it'll slide back and forth across the gel top coat, and you can pull the acrylic into nice long straight lines fairly easily. And then after I have those done, I'm going to cut off the extra length on my lollipop sticks, if there does happen to be any. And then I'm going to attach them to the front of the house with some more of the white acrylic in a little snow pile on either front side of the door. There's the first one. I'm going to have the lollipop actually touch the very corner of the house. That way I can add a bit of clear acrylic right there to hold that in place. It gives you just a second point of attaching it, because that very bottom one, just the wire inside the acrylic, is not super strong. And so if you do have that opportunity to add a little bit of acrylic at the very top to hold it upright, it's just another little added insurance to do. Do the same thing on the other side, hold it in place. It does take a minute to just sit there and hold it before you are comfortable to let it go so that it doesn't slowly tip and fall right off. Once you are happy with those, you can add some more snow, kind of smooth out the transition from that snow pile that the lollipops are sitting in towards the front of the nail, kind of blend it out so it's not so abrupt. And then add some snow anywhere you feel like the house needs a little bit of snow on it. I'm going to line the front roof line with some snowy white acrylic, kind of taking it down. The great thing with this is the snow does not have to be any kind of straight line. It's not a perfect shape. It's sort of haphazard. Do the same thing on any other areas. Outline anything you feel like the house needs it. So I'm going to go down the very top roof line and then along the back. I actually made my first gingerbread house from scratch this year. I've never even assembled one before, and I was like, you know what, we're just going to make one. And I'd have to say it was so much more difficult than I thought it would be. I figured, I make templates all the time. I had already made an acrylic gingerbread house this year. I'm like, yeah, I got this. I can make a gingerbread house. Oh dear. It worked. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we got it. It eventually, it was all good, but getting that royal icing to dry and hold all the pieces in place was a lot more tedious than I expected. So to anybody who's like a gingerbread house aficionado, hats off to you. I'm going to be adding the white snow or royal icing or whatever you'd like to call it around the bottom edges of my house and then the back portion. once there is snow on every part of these little edges that you want there to be, you can start to kind of envision what you want for the rest of the decorations. Make a list or have a list in mind of what you want to do so that you can plan how big to make them, where you're going to put them, and all of those things. So as you're working on everything else, just kind of have that in the back of your mind. I'm going to use the same pick acrylic that I used to make the bows for the lollipops, and I'm going to add a little ribbon going all the way around the lollipop sticks. And then after I have that little ribbon sculpted, I will be gluing the bows onto the fronts of those ribbons, just kind of holding them in place until the glue dries, and then using more of the pick acrylic to transition the bow onto the ribbon in the back so that they are actually very well attached. You don't want anything falling apart, and that's one of the biggest concerns I have whenever I'm sculpting any kind of crazy design, is that I don't want it to break. I want it to be durable so that it lasts. And I could make it into a ring or a necklace or display it in some way if that happens to strike my fancy. One thing that I do want to add to my gingerbread house that I knew I wanted to add was some candy canes. So with white acrylic, I'm going to be sculpting the classic hooked candy cane shape on my nail form backing. I'm going to be doing one candy cane that is facing the right and one candy cane that is facing the left. I know I don't plan to make it so that they have acrylic on the other side so that they're 3D on both front and back. And I want one facing each direction, so you do, if that's the situation, need to sculpt them facing one right and one left. I'm also going to sculpt just some white circles that I'm going to leave plain for right now. I'll add the little candy striping on them eventually towards the end of the process, but for now I'm just going to leave them white circles. I'm going to glue those white circles here and there on the design. I'm going to glue one on the front of the house and then one on each side. I'm envisioning them like my windows of my gingerbread house. After I have those attached, I'm going to glue or attach my candy canes to the back of the house with more clear acrylic, pressing them into the clear acrylic to hold them in place. After the first one's on there, I'm going to add a little more clear acrylic underneath it because it seemed like it might wiggle still. I'm going to grab my second candy cane and layer it on top in a little crisscross pattern on the back of the house, holding them in place. Same thing, add a little more clear acrylic behind that one just to make sure that it really does stay where you put it. Now I'm going to move on to acrylic paint. I'm going to be adding all of my details to everything that I've done so far. I'm going to be adding a red swirl on the front of my lollipops. And after I've got the red swirl on the front of the lollipop, you're going to want to turn that around and add the red swirl to the back of the lollipop as well. With different colors, green, blue, purple, whatever kind of color mix you want, I'm going to be adding a more typical peppermint, kind of a pulled toward the center swirl on those little circles. And then I'm going to use red again to add a typical candy cane striping to the candy canes that are on the back of the house. This is one of those times where whatever kind of color combinations, whatever colors seem to just what you're in the mood for, go ahead and grab those and mix it up and do different things in different places. Have fun with it. If you want a more detailed kind of instructional video on how to do those little candy or the peppermint swirls, I do have a video where I just painted that and it has a little bit more detail to it. It's my Christmas nails of this year, and I can put a link to that in the description box below. With white acrylic paint, I'm going to be adding some highlights to all of my snowy areas. The white acrylic paint is a brighter shade of white than just white acrylic, and so adding these little speckled outlines here and there on top of the white really brightens it up. I'm going to use that white paint to be adding my door details to the front of the house, and then any other frosting details that were not sculpted with the acrylic I'll be adding now. I'll do a scalloped pattern on the roof line. I actually did that on my actual gingerbread house too. I really liked the way that looked, so I repeated it on the real one. I'm going to do the one side, and then I'm going to repeat and do the other side of the house, trying to keep the scalloping about the same size as I did on the first side so that it looks nice and symmetrical. Adding a little bit of some striping onto my ribbons that are around the lollipops. And then anything else that just seems necessary. If there's any spots where you're like, yeah, these need a little bit of something, go ahead and adjust those. On my little candy pieces, little candy circles, I'm going to be adding white to them because, like I said, the white acrylic isn't quite as bright of white as the white paint is. And so any place where it was just that white acrylic, after I added the white highlights here and there, they seemed dingy. So I wanted to brighten them up. Once you're done with all of your acrylic painting, go through with some jewelry gel and start adding places where you're going to attach little sparkles or rhinestones or crystals or studs or just any of those extra pieces that you're not going to sculpt, but that you have to add. The extra candies that are just ready-made. After you have some jewelry gel placed down, apply either a matte top coat or a glossy gel top coat to cover it up, and then press your sparkly elements into the wet gel products. So you have two kinds of gel that are wet currently, jewelry gel and gel top coat. And then after you press the whatever section of jewelry items, the rhinestones, crystals, studs, etc., that you have ready, that you're got the gel products applied for, then cure that section and move on to the next one. You want to only work in one little area at a time so that you don't end up bumping it or having it get smudged or smeared or slide. So after you have the first section done and you're happy with all of those little placements, go ahead and repeat for the other side, but cure between them. I'm going to add a row of rhinestones across the very top peak of the house, add my jewelry gel and then my matte gel top coat, and then press those little pieces in the front or across the very top of it. I'm using a mix of half pearls that are in different colors on the very top of it. So I've got some pink and some that are kind of an off-white color. And then I'm going to be adding some different things. When I was picking out my stuff for this design, I just went over to my shelf that has all of my different crystals and everything, all the different wheels of sparkly, pretty extra things. And I just started grabbing things that I thought might work, trying to keep in mind to keep them a little bit on the small side, because if anything was too big, I felt it would overshadow the gingerbread house that we worked so hard on, and you don't want to do that. So try to find the little stuff. And I don't know, I didn't feel like this was a design that needed the really fancy, expensive crystals. I almost thought that the less faceted plastic ones that normally I'd be like, I don't really feel like I want those on my nails because they're not as nice. I actually thought they seemed more appropriate in this situation. So if you have some of those cheap ones that you got off Amazon or wherever you might want to find them, this would be the time to use them instead of your Swarovskis, because this just calls for it. It's got a juvenile feeling to it, and it just seems like that's the appropriate use. I'm going to apply gel sealer to any of the candy pieces that do not currently have any top coat on them, make them nice and shiny, make them look like they have a wrapper on them. And then that's it. This is a design where there's so much freedom to change and adjust and have fun with it. I hope you guys try it out because it really is one of the cutest little nail projects I've worked on this season, and I hope you guys like it, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!